Hello. Thank you for your patience. The four of you who are waiting. I was explaining to Tobe I was having a hair crisis. There's a lot going on up here, so
Static.
we're going full crow tonight.
At least you've got hair. Some people's hair is just coming out in clumps, and you still got some locks going on.
There's a lot to deal with, and
Surprised you're not
it's a
pulling it out.
burden and a blessing.
It is. That is much longer than I thought it was.
I always, because most of the time I have a baseball cap on, and I keep it pulled
Yeah.
up in a bun, and even I forget how much we're dealing with.
Sometimes I do mine like Gary Oldman in Dracula, and I'll put it up in giant twisted
Whoop.
knots up here. I even come down in a robe down the sidewalk periodically and freak the neighbors out. But that's just my Monday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your Monday, my Tuesday. What do you want? So
Tonight I'm enjoying some tonic water, just so people know, just some fresh tonic.
Oh. That was a bait and switch. Well, I just wanted to, Tobe, I'm glad your schedule cleared up. I know with the holidays it was hard to connect and try to coordinate, but I just thought it was important that we jumped on and just kind of did a recap, like the holiday recap, and just touch base on what's going on.
Mhm.
What are you doing? What are you, like, court reporter? What?
I just want people to know that we're like tracking down information. While we're not doing this, we're constantly doing field notes about recent sightings, whatever is happening. We're, completely engaged. At least Jill is.
Yeah, there's been some wild stuff going on. Yes. So, oh, and also I just want to let people know that Brett is in the chat. He is a kind of doing housekeeping in there as a flash of beauty Bigfoot revealed. So,
nice.
He will be
Ashley
your
Stennett in here. We've got Arla Williams. I see Timmy. I see Charlie. Is that Lois? All the kids are sitting on the bench waving at us back, and thanks for doing the yeoman's work there, Uncle Brett.
So.
Okay, you next.
Right on time. Okay. Well, I just, I want to start off with, it's been awesome watching the interaction with people on the YouTube channel, even when we post the links to Facebook. The feedback and the commentary on the interviews we're posting. But we started noticing a little bit of a theme, and that a lot of people don't realize that we did some documentaries. These aren't just, we just didn't go out and film all these interviews to put up on a channel. These are actually, some of you may not know this, I'm sure most of you do. These are the full interviews that we filmed to make a Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed, and also a Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot. So yeah, it's like, if you're enjoying the documentaries in all their full candor and exposure, you're really going to enjoy it trimmed down into sound bites with pretty music and visuals, and telling a very concise story. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, especially with the sequel. We had a little bit of a false start with the release. Not to go down that rabbit hole and poke that hornet's nest, but the sequel is now available on Vimeo and on Amazon. And a lot of people, when we post about it, say it's on Tubi. Don't buy it, it's on Tubi. And it's like, well, no, that's the first one. And I'll tell you what, we only made the first one to set up the second one, because the sequel, Paranormal Bigfoot, is the real movie we wanted to make, but we had to ease into it. We just couldn't come out of left field and throw that at you. So, so you can find it on Amazon and Vimeo. And I know there's some confusion also, because there's a couple links up there. One, you can rent it, one, it's not available. If you go to our website, www.bigfootdoc.com, it will take you to straight to the Amazon link. It'll also take you to this YouTube link that you are already aware of, to subscribe. and it will take you to our merchandise page that has the most awesome, comfortable hoodies
Mhm. Mhm.
ever, ever, ever. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to start with that, but
Mhm.
let us begin. If you don't have anything to add to that, Tobe,
No, I
let
just what was the name of that, website again? Just, as a
uh,
reminder?
maybe Brett can drop that in the comments. It's Bigfoot DOC
There you
dot
go.
com. Yeah,
Nice.
just
Mhm.
we're running a clean show here. Um, yeah, so I was thinking I wanted to talk about the last two interviews we posted. The Christmas gift to everyone, Daryl Wilson,
Mm.
and then we also had Doug Meacham in the mix, but also Sonia Zohar.
Mhm.
Does it get any better than that?
It really doesn't, when it comes to both of those people, they're really interesting witnesses, as people have already seen if they've watched this. I think Sonia's been up for less than a week, and it's around 30,000 views or thereabouts. I don't know where Daryl is at, but Daryl ends A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed is kind of capped with his miraculous story that he has. Sonia, we kind of save her for the first and the second, especially. And so, you get the best of both movies when you see this cutting room floor footage. And I don't know, why don't you tell us a little bit more, Jill, about Daryl Wilson?
Well, what has been so neat about Daryl's interview is the comments.
Mm,
Now, like I said, there's some people who didn't really understand that the interviews we're putting up are it's the full interviews. Like usually that's unheard of for a documentary to give the viewers access to everything. But as you can see, there's a lot there that we want everyone to know. Um, for example, just to backtrack slightly, like on Mark Parker's interview, there were comments about like we're 2 minutes in and I don't know what he's talking. What did he see? What cut to the chase? And I'm like, you guys, calm down. Like, get to know Mark. He's a
mhm,
great guy. Learn about hunting in Oregon and competitive bow shooting or arching, and um, and then because at the end he gets into it, but the comments on Daryl's interview is just heartwarming because he and you've met Toby, you met him, you and Brett sat down with him to do that
mhm,
podcast interview. He's just like the greatest guy ever. And
mhm,
to see people commenting on his sincerity, his enthusiasm, and I just want to let people know because there are a lot of people who are like, "Is he okay? Here is like I have a doctor, or here are cures." Daryl's doing great. He is just doing amazing. He's with us, busy as ever, collecting stories to
mhm,
share with everyone. But just the feedback, and I think, Daryl's interview and the genuine sincerity of what he experienced, that's kind of like the Bigfoot encounter I feel like everyone needed to hear. You know, forget the bravado, because there's there can be a lot of like bravado and ego involved, and Daryl just tells it how it is. I think a lot of our witnesses are like that, but we just thought it was so appropriate on Christmas that we shared with him. Yeah.
Yeah, now Daryl is, he really is a perfect little soul. Like there's this true innocence in him that has been honed in a small town like only Vernal, Utah could probably do. And only meeting him, first through seeing the screener footage circa 2021, I think, is when I first saw him on film. And then meeting him only a few months back in Vernal at Phenomicon, we had the chance to sit down with Vernal and have a one-on-one with him. And he told the story the same way he told it to everybody here. And he believes what he saw to be the real McCoy, and it changed him. it perhaps even healed and put his remission of his malignant cancer. Whatever you think of that, I mean, there certainly is enough evidence to prove that there is power in faith and healing. And what if Daryl had an experience that was so genuine that it put his cancer in remission and he was on a death sentence? Let's not forget that. He was on his way basically to see his family in Alaska for the last time. And
Yeah.
after the sighting, that wasn't the case. How could that not profoundly change you as a person and confirm what you saw as being legitimate? So when I saw you guys were going to cap the documentary off, with Daryl's story, it just made sense to me that that would be the case.
And they say, thoughts become things, and what you focus on, where your focus goes, energy flows. And after his sighting, he shifted his focus. And his daughter Rachel had even said that prior to his sighting, all the
Hmm.
conversation was about treatment and medical
Hmm.
approaches and about the cancer. And all of a sudden, his he did a 180 shift where he wasn't focused on that. It
Hmm.
became obsessed with what he
Hmm.
saw and trying to find answers.
Hmm.
So,
The healing thing's pretty controversial in this community, even with the most woo of us. The healing aspect of Sasquatch interaction is still something that I still wonder about. I think there might be negative physical ramifications for interacting with the supernatural. Certainly with UFOs, they study after effects of radiation poisoning and such. However, that doesn't seem to be the case with so many that are what I would call these Sasquatch contactees that say that they have reversal of disease, um, or they've been given treatment in the case of the Al Moon Lab. So I can't say anything about Daryl's case other than the fact that uh, his doctors believe that the cancer is in remission, and that's good enough for me. Daryl's still with us when he should be 6 feet under. He's very much not, and I have a good feeling that he'll probably have more energy than all of us combined at Phenomicon with charged batteries ready to go and 15 different dictaphones. And the guy, I get the passion, dude. Like, I hope you see this episode. I get the passion. You want to hear the stories of other believers, other people that have been changed by this phenomena. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I found out this phenomena could be real, I immediately start sticking microphones in everybody's face because it changes you. Once you know that your little myopic part of the world, this little sand grain of sand that you have called your life, and you know that there's this ocean of knowledge out there, that some people just don't want to talk about. And that's the next point I want to get into. Daryl brought up some really interesting nuggets here. Um, and I want to get into kind of the last part of the interview that he talked about before he talked about his daughter Rachel, or right afterwards. He talked about the anger of some of the witnesses that had brought up the Sasquatch stories. In particular, he was interviewing a lady, and I believe another relative or friend heard the relative talking about her experience,
yeah.
and there was this immense anger that came up and erupted. Where do you think something like that comes from, Jill? This, because I've experienced it before. It's a very quick, snappy kind of vitriol in the name of Bigfoot.
And you're speaking of like a relative or someone close who did not have the sighting but is
Hmm.
close to someone.
Hmm. Or even just bringing it up. I think he even says that he just brought it up in mixed company, and there is immediately this harsh pushback with, explicatives pushed in his face. So, where do you think that comes from?
Fear, maybe.
Mm.
Fear, challenging the paradigm. I don't know. I mean, or
Have you
shame. I'm sure.
experienced it?
Um, Well, like I've told people, when we first started doing this documentary
Mhm,
and I told my parents,
mhm,
they were just like, "What the hell?" My mom specifically, "Jill, your father and I have been very supportive of your projects, but your
right,
father does not know what to think of this." After they've watched the documentary and hearing about all this stuff,
mhm.
my mom, if she sees someone like with a Bigfoot t-shirt or hat, she will go up and she'll ask them, "Did you have a sighting? Have you had
I
a
know,
sighting?" And
right.
my dad, it took him. He was out golfing, and someone in his golf party was like, "Oh yeah, so and so had a sighting." It was like someone who's like a county judge or in a respected
Mhm,
position.
mhm.
That validated it for him. Now they haven't seen the sequel yet, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot to unpack
Oh,
there.
really? They haven't seen the sequel.
No, not yet.
Oh,
That'll
okay.
be a family event, family screening. Uh, but no, I mean, I've gotten some weird, you know, I can't answer that directly. I mean, as far as
Okay.
anger, and
Mhm,
Brett and I were actually having a conversation the other day about we were like it was like in Sasquatch Highway or Bigfoot Believers, one of these groups on Facebook, and someone like just went off the rails trolling, people. And I was like, what does it if this isn't your cup of tea, why are you here? But
mhm.
also, it's like I'm not into NASCAR or but
Really?
I would never go to like a NASCAR fan page and be like, this isn't a sport, this is BS. Like,
Screw that
what?
shake and bake. Right.
Yeah, right? So Ricky Bobby,
Yeah.
or like fantasy football. It's not real. But I would never feel the anger or the
Mm,
compulsion to go in and just like attack people. I mean,
mhm.
that's I don't know, maybe it's an insecurity. You know what? We need Dr. Michael Adams
Oh,
on
yeah.
board. So we need to do a podcast with him to get to the bottom of this and find
Well, I think
out.
it really challenges the male ego. I've seen the vitriol come out of women, but, guys are not the ultimate predator in the forest. That strikes the fear in the heart of most alpha males, and certainly the intellectual types too, that think they know everything about the data set, right? Because they've measured it all. They're academics. The academics, in particular, can be quite cruel, dismissive, and Daryl's case, he has such the good personality to deflect those kind of personalities off him. And I watched it happen for 3 or 4 days in Utah. He just kind of moved to the next person that was willing to tell their story. And he's not just interested in Bigfoot stories. He's taken a lot of other interesting cases there in town. So
Well,
it was
he
just
has a
encouraging.
he has a great technique. So when we met Daryl, he told us this, and he talks about it in his interview. He will ask people like when he showed up at the airport, "I've seen a Bigfoot. Have you?" So he'll ask people if they've ever had a Bigfoot sighting. If people kind of shoot him down, his uh, his approach is he'll ask them, "What's the most incredible thing or most unbelievable thing you've ever witnessed or seen with your
Right.
own eyes?"
Right.
And and when he asked us that, Brett and I, before we did his interview when we arrived at his house. And by happenstance, we're in Vernal, and maybe an hour prior to this, Brett and I just witnessed a UFO east of Vernal, out in the desert. So we're like,
Hmm.
well, we just saw a UFO on our way here. But I found myself I will use that, in conversations when people are like, "Who cares? Why
Hmm.
isn't there a body? Why don't I haven't seen one, so it can't be real." And
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well, what have you seen? Let's start there."
Because chances are everybody's seen something that are these hidden events, right? That Simeon Hine brings. Is it Simeon Hine who coined that term, hidden event? It's such a
Yeah.
perfect term. So these hidden events, everybody's had one, be it a vivid dream or deja vu, missing time, strange objects in the sky, usually, generally, ghost or UFOs being kind of the top ones that people can all say they've had an experience with. Um, and I think Daryl's of the same mind that all these things kind of belong in the same magical category, that they are, in his case, a religious experience. And he says as much after he has this experience. He thanks God for this beautiful creature that he just experienced. And, you get that feeling out of almost all of the eyewitnesses in Flash of Beauty, that they are grateful for their encounter, even if it was extreme and it's still hard to process. There is this sense of, and you tell me that I'm wrong if you need to. I have a sense that they would not take their experience back. Most of these witnesses.
No, even I guess even the more dramatic or where there's like some trauma and PTSD, I think it opened their eyes. I mean, you look at Rich Germeau and what he
Hmm.
witnessed, it changed his world. And I don't know if it doesn't sound like it was all positive. That was my
Hmm.
takeaway from his interview. However, that really opened the door to put him on the path he's on.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. One of the many doors Rich is going down.
What
But
a path it is.
like so many people in the documentary, it is, is one of our guests in the second part, Ira Wolfnelson, writes, it's one of the gates that you open, and there's many gates after that. It is this base layer knowledge that the world is not as it's been told to you. Information has been held back for whatever reason, that there are these hidden events, these hidden beings, as Rich calls them, illegal aliens, here with us that we embrace, and that we take this phenomena in all different shapes and forms. But eventually, I think we need to come to terms, and maybe I'm rushing ahead here with the talk of getting into Sonia Zohar, but we need to come to terms with the fact that there's something um, supernatural through our own genealogy occurring on a timeline with these beings here, as though we've carried on throughout our histories on parallel timelines, but in two dramatically separate ways with two dramatic outcomes.
Yeah.
If they're real, I think they're real. I think
Yeah,
they're real.
so do you should we just jump in and talk about Sonia?
Yeah.
And first off, again, with the comments, I mean, I think the viewer interaction on hers was off the chart, like over 300 comments,
Hmm.
and it's only been up for a few days, I think. And there's always going to be someone who takes an issue. Like every interview we have, there's always a few people who are like, "Meh, blah blah blah." But
Yeah.
man, what what my takeaway is that what Sonia brought to the table and what she shared, it was a fresh voice, a fresh perspective, a much needed new like fresh blood and life, injected into the Sasquatch conversation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, she invites comment and controversy with style and class in a way that's rarely captured in humanity, and even harder to capture on camera. It's very difficult to get an interview like Sonia Zohar is able to give, even on sometimes her worst days. She's still completely you know she doesn't have a blank spot in her head like I do. She's able to fulfill her thoughts cogently in a matter with deep historical relevance to everything that she's talking about. And she's a teacher. She has an interesting background. Some of it she doesn't really get into. I think she has some probably interesting backgrounds with other three-letter agencies. I haven't been able to get that out of her. but I hope that's true because I think that's a cooler story. But she's certainly capable. I can't even believe that she's just like a normal citizen down the street from me because she should be teaching at MIT or something.
Agreed. Agreed.
Hmm.
Yeah. Even during the interview, there were a couple times where I checked out and I'm like, I'm having trouble keeping up with her. But
Hmm.
she reminded me of, and it was so interesting during the interview. So she just has this lightness about her and she's quick. She's like very well paced and composed in the interview, but when the camera isn't going, and Tobe, I know you've been around Sonya enough off camera. She is quick and it's like a hummingbird zipping around and it's like
Hmm.
trying to keep up with. She's connecting dots that haven't even been dotted yet. And she's, I dare
Well,
say,
she's
too smart for her own good, but she's
yeah.
she's smart. She's extremely
I mean,
intelligent.
she would have been great in a squad car with Rich. I could just see, like the late time cop buddy movie. Um, I mean, it just really the both are just high caliber intellects and inquisitive and investigative minds, to the like that just kind of goes into a different
Yeah.
ability than I have. I feel weird and kind of tarred hanging out with them. I kind of have to pretend a little bit like I'm getting some of it, but and then eventually they kind of dumb it down to my level so I can play along, right?
Yes. But,
Yeah.
like, during the interview, it was magical because for whatever reason, all the animals started coming out of nowhere.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And even, like, some woman came through walking our miniature horse. We're, like, out in the forest on a path, and here comes
I
this
love it.
miniature horse, and we're like, "What the?" And, like, the squirrels and, like, this giant frog comes up and is, like, fearless, like, and is
Yeah.
just staring up at her. And, there was some other thing. There was, like, a what was it? There was, like, a missing cat. There was, like, a poster,
Hmm.
put up, like, at the hiking, like, like, "This is the trail map" thing,
Hmm.
and, it was for a missing cat, and she kinda looked at it and she's like, "Oh, now I have to find the cat now." And I think she did find the cat. It's something bizarre like that. I can't remember, but,
Hmm.
the whole interview was just there was a sense of magic. It was just
Hmm.
really, really great. Yeah.
And it filled the frame. Uh, Absolutely, just beautifully shot by Mike Ferry, who eventually I hope joins us here on one of these shots because he's the unsung hero of a lot of the beauty that people caught in part one of Flash of Beauty. I did want to bring up a couple points here on Sonia, in particular when she talks about how Sasquatch's survival depends on them staying a hoax. I thought that was a real poignant line, and it makes sense to me. What's your opinion on that?
Yes. Well, it's a catch-22. If humans are gonna behave like total idiots and destroy the world and be disrespectful to other beings, whether it be Sasquatch or animals, yeah, it makes sense to protect them, like just pretend they're not real. But maybe there's a chance, maybe there's an awakening where people can start have a wake up call where it's like, there are other things out there that we
Hmm.
need to take care of nature. This should be our wake up call to take care of nature, that we don't have to kill everything, that we can respect other things out in the forest or things we don't understand and just let them be. There's also that side of the coin.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I don't give
um,
humanity enough credit to do that, but it's a nice thought.
I know. I mean, I know so little about the culture of what's going on with them. I only kind of know really my baseline culture. I've only traveled very little to other countries, mainly when I was in the service. But there's a whole other way of living and thinking that is so counterintuitive to us. And someone brought up the interesting point, and maybe we talked about this last time, is that their tolerance for cameras seems to be such a pronounced disdain for getting that image. In fact, we were talking offline about leaving mirrors in the forest and how mirrors are taken off the branches and crushed or turned upside down. Generally, there seems to be a disdain for the image. Um, and I don't know why that is, because we're so attached to the image of ourselves. I mean, we're doing selfies, we're involved with, putting people on magazines. It's all about the visual image. And it doesn't seem to be any of that going on in there. And I don't know if that has something to do with the ego, because there is something to do with this dance of them constantly gauging what your motives are and if your intentions are pure or good or reasonable. Let's just say if your intentions are reasonable, therefore you can come in and you will share an experience with us. But most of the time, our intentions are to trick them to gather whatever we're doing. Um, or to just go out into the woods and get trashed, right? And that's probably another host of experiences. So, I mean, are you really going to bring your family to a gathering where people are out there to hoax you or to try to dupe you? Or I could just see that happening if these are family groups of Sasquatch out there. Sonia point that their survival depends on them being a hoax makes a lot of sense, just given the average activity that takes part when we go out into basically their living room. So if that's the case, then I could see that point. And she's kind of the only one that made that point. I think Arla kind of makes that point too in part two of our documentary about how they live and in response to ourselves.
There's also an element at the same time, they've been watching and probably been witness to many humans doing stupid stuff in the woods. And I would think, and so what we've heard from other people that they do have a sense of humor. There is a Yogi Bear type, you know, activity going on where they're outsmarting people to get
Hmm.
the food. Where they're
Hmm.
being like a setup to be tricked. I mean,
Hmm.
didn't you recently at the Owl Moon? Didn't you and Scott Taylor put something out? Am I supposed to
We
discuss
did.
that?
Oh yeah, I don't know if we were tricked, but just to explain shortly, I never really wanted to trick these beings because I thought it would move me farther away, and that just kind of came from the school of thought that hey, they're real, hey, they're watching. If you're gonna mess with them, they're going to mess with you back. But
Mhm.
if you try to push the line too much, there's a boundary with that. And eventually, I crossed that boundary by leaving out an air tag. Which, if people don't know what an air tag is, you put it in your luggage, generally, or in your wallet or purse, in your car, and you can track it with your phone. So it's a tracking device about the size of a quarter for $29. You can buy them, and you can buy four of them for $100. So we bought a couple of them, and then I had an extra one, and I put it inside of a baby doll's head from the Dollar General, and just stuffed it in the plastic head of the doll and popped the head back on. And I gave it to my buddy Scott Taylor, and I gave it to Scott without telling him there was something inside the baby, and that was probably I felt weird about that. I felt a little dirty doing it that way, but here's the thought behind it is here I am, I'm thinking about comments like Sonia Zohar is making about how they're so omniscient about who we are, right? And I thought, well, what if these things can read my mind? And here I'm putting this trick down here. I'll give it to Scott. He doesn't know. He's a pure heart. He has pure intention. And maybe this tracking device will pick up steam and I'll be able to monitor it. Well, things didn't work out in my favor as far as I could tell. The tracking device disappeared for a period of a couple weeks unexpectedly, or at least it's lost its ability out of state to track it. And I ended up finding pieces of the doll kind of chewed on and pulled apart. But in particular, there was the head that was pulled off without any chew marks on it. So something had popped that head off of there and not had the mind to pull the tracking device out of the head. It wasn't an animal that did it. It would have taken teeth, and I would have caught evidence on that plastic. So obviously, they were watching once again, and I kind of upped the game last time I was there as well, and we'll talk about that next time perhaps. But you know, I think I'm taking a step back in my research by doing something like that in a place that is kind of like a spiritual getaway for me. But
Mhm.
you get desperate once in a while to have interaction, and this is a form of desperation on my end. It's a Hail Mary toss.
Now have you we're getting a little, we're veering away from talking about Sonia, but up in your new
Mm,
location, have
mm,
you engaged at all with the have you offered apples or anything of
yeah.
that?
So yeah, so
Yeah.
we have two different locations out here. We have one east of us and one west of us, and I'm on a section of 101 out here in the Olympic highways. And so there are known hot spots where I've had modest interaction, but I can't seem to get any interaction out here on the constant, not like the old days. And I'm okay with that because it seems like I'm enjoying other people's stories. We have other projects we're doing with it, but I am kind of missing it. And I'm probably talking about this, watching the new documentary again. It's bringing up old battle scars of Cottage Grove, and I'm wanting to get back in the game and play again. So, you know, it's it's healthy to take a break from this stuff, but once in a while you got to go right back in the fire.
Now, do you this kind of get this is a question for era because
Hmm.
it's very era-ish. But did you wait for that invitation? Do you RSVP to the invitation that they send, or do you go out and try to stir something up?
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if I'm not getting any kind of synchronicity to pull me into the woods. It's really based upon schedule. So it's kind of a more of a mundane response than maybe Ira would appreciate. But in my case, um, it's really just a matter of trying to poke the bear and see if I get a response at this point. It's not like the old days where, if anybody knows who we're talking about Ira Wolfnison in part two. And there's this real poetry to how Ira speaks and what she's looked into as far as being a spiritualist. And she's a really close friend of the family, and basically says, that this is a spiritual journey that you're on when you have these invitations to interact with beings like this. And I could definitely see that and appreciate that based upon everything that has happened. But there's also this didactic, what I would call surge of adrenaline that I need once in a while from the phenomena to shock me. I want to be shocked by it. I want to be completely caught off guard by the phenomena. And so once in a while, I seek that. And it usually happens, actually, it usually happens on Friday nights around 8 o'clock is when I'm in the woods. So I'm all for being here. I didn't have plans on going out tonight at all. Too busy, but yeah, if I'm ever out, it's usually Friday night with my new buddy Dave Kuhn.
Is that the
Dave, if you're
neighbor?
watching.
Is this your don't you have a squatchy neighbor you're talking about?
I do. When you say it like that, it makes me feel bad for him. Um,
No, it's you're a squatchy neighbor. You're
I'm a squatchy neighbor. I should feel bad for me. Yeah, no, I do. I've got several squatchy neighbors, and I'm the squatchiest of them, by the way. And so, yeah, once in a while, I've only convinced one of them to go out with me. Nancy Fry, not too far. Nancy Fry, of course, will go down any old dirt path with me, day or night. And Aaron has gotten back into it quite a bit because we've thrown in not only the idea of going off trail, but looking for mushrooms. So that's my advice to you fellas. If you can't get your gal to come back out in the woods, give her something pretty to find. Tell her that, tell her that's where diamond rings are buried, or put a geocache spin on it, or say it's next to the fabric store. Whatever you got to do, it will help. And so these are things that I learned along the way the last couple years.
And maybe that's the real, endpoint of the journey. Your journey is, it's a survival story about how to
Hmm.
get people out in the woods with you.
It might be because it seems like they're attracted to pairs of people with this tuning fork effect of where you can have more activity engage with you based upon the individual that's with you. That's something really interesting. I'd be curious to talk to other people and what I would, these window areas like Skinwalker Ranch or Wilson Ranch or whatever, and see if they're having more activity with certain people in their company and hot
Hmm,
zones. That might be something to look at. By the way, I just started
interesting.
watching Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. If anybody hasn't seen Beyond Skinwalker Ranch and you liked Paranormal Bigfoot, it's from the same damn universe. You need to watch this show. It's really compelling.
Do they
Yeah.
so, can you give us a little? I don't know, do they stay at the ranch, or are they going to other locations? And
No, they have an ex-CIA agent and a journalist that they send to hotspots around America, and then they spend 4 days there, and then come back to the ranch and give a debriefing. And they're coming back with some really interesting stuff.
hmm,
I'm only 2 episodes in, but the discipline behind the world of people that are looking into UFOs and the discipline, at least the perceived public discipline of the Bigfoot researcher, is worlds apart, folks. We got to get our act together when it comes to this. I don't know if we need to rename Bigfoot and give it an acronym like the UAP acronym or something like that in order to get more ears and eyeballs. Um, and maybe it's supposed to be at this pace. It's kind of the redneck version of the paranormal, and we're kind of treating it that way. And I'm definitely an old redneck from the Al Moon Lab for damn sure, and so I get it. But eventually, we're going to have to lean on other minds along the way here to uh, engage this phenomenon because I think it's ready to engage back with us. Let me ask you this, Jill. Since you've been doing the documentary, can you, especially part two, and talking to all these witnesses that have had the hitchhiker effect, I'm sure quite a few of them, have
mhm.
you yourself or Brett, if you feel comfortable, had the hitchhiker effect come to your door?
Yeah, so I how do I put this? I don't know if it's exactly hitchhiker effect or other things being stirred up. So we had just moved into a new house, like Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, 2019. Don't ever sell your house and move at Christmas. It is a nightmare. Um,
It sounds
uh,
bad.
it was awful. But so as we started this documentary, we had just like moved into a new house, and I think that sometimes can stir up existing energies, so to speak. There definitely have been some moments, and I don't know if it's all Owl Moon related or other locations. I do know that we have had some interesting experiences at
Hmm.
at the Owl Moon, wilderness
Hmm.
area. Um, they actually one of them involved a skeptic friend that we took down there, and she walked
Hmm.
into like an energy zone where she was like shaking, and her hair, all of her hair was standing up. But I will remember, like, while we were in the thick of making the first documentary, Brett and I were standing in the kitchen, and he looked up and he's like, "Do you see that?" And do 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 do. Here comes this like brownish, dirty looking orb, just kind of floating along our kitchen, up, going through our kitchen. And I was like, "Yeah." And then it disappeared. And there were a lot of I personally was experiencing a lot of synchronicities and oh, that's interesting type moments where I
Hmm.
felt like I was really being engaged with. Um, but I think there was never anything malicious, but there was definitely times where the energy like was ramped up really high
Hmm.
and things were at play.
I want to go back to that orb just real quick and ask the audience um, if anybody would admit or describe seeing a dirty grayish brown orb. And in my case, it almost looked like a microscopic image of like a amoeba or something, where you could see like the distortion element mixed maybe with the skin of an elephant, um, muted tones. Has anybody ever seen anything like that in relationship to what Jill described and what I've described in proximity to a hot spot or a haunted spot or a Bigfoot zone? Because I think it is one of the lesser known energy forms or orbs ever described, and I've only heard of it recently. So it's kind of fascinating to me. I don't know what those would be, if they're one of the same of the other kind of orbs that are out there.
You know what I still have, Tobe? Here, I'm gonna
Mm,
try to pull this out. After our first trip to the Owl Moon with you and Daryl,
mm.
where we found the vine the loop, the little
Oh
loop
my
that was
gosh.
made, and you cut it off, and you're like, you handed it to me, and you're like, now it's your problem, or whatever you said. You're like, now you can experience the magic of
That is
Sasquatch at your front
beautiful.
door.
I haven't seen that in years. I'm so glad that it has a home.
Yes, it's right over here in the corner
Hmm.
where it can do no harm. Um, yeah, but like as far as hitchhiker effects, I mean, I guess also it's kind of this idea getting into like the sequel, and I think a lot has to do with intention and mindset. But I'd like to think there's a level of kind of respect, like the forces that be, they're going to meet you where you are. They're not going to show you more than you can handle, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, Not all the times. I think when there's a level of respect or a sentience there, um, because let's be honest, there are things in the world beyond our comprehension that can just be
Hmm.
jerks. Um, but I think it has to do with a level of openness because I
Hmm.
know I've been in situations where I'm kind of like, is anyone else seeing this or experiencing this? And I'll be with someone who'll just be like,
Hmm.
I don't believe in that stuff, so no, I can't comment. There's nothing to see here. It's like,
Well, those kind of people, you just have to move on. Move on. I did want to ask you about Miami in the few minutes that we have here. What do you know about a place called Miami, Florida, and what's significant about that place?
well, I know that the Foot Locker at the mall wasn't taking phone calls.
I actually have some audio queued up. If you want to lay out the story,
Okay,
then
so
I've got the audio.
okay, so you probably know more than me. So actually, when you and Brett in the group chat were talking about it, I was on a call with McKenna, our friend, our mutual
Oh.
friend McKenna, and
Mm.
she asked me if she's like, "Are you following this thing in Miami?" She's like, "Yeah, there was like an alien at the mall, and like 70 cop cars showed up." And I was like, no, that's weird. And so then I hopped into the group chat to tell you guys about it, and you guys were already talking about it. So basically, the gist of it, um, people were reporting something very tall and big, like almost like cloaking and trying to disguise itself amongst people, but it was much bigger, so it stood out. And so, what do? You call the boys in blue to come down and read them your
Hmm.
rights, I guess. But that's the gist of it. I mean, all I saw was the TikTok video, but
Okay.
it's wild,
So
right? I mean, people know what they
Well, I'd be curious to see what people are responding to watching this. What have you heard about this story? Because on around January 2nd, I heard about this story, and the image of 70 cop cars all at once flooding a zone reminded me of a terrorist attack. I assumed it was a first person shooter or it was some kind of attack, right? It's Miami, it's happened in Florida before. And that wasn't the headline. The headline was there's thugs in the mall with sticks having a fight. I was like, oh wow, like lightsabers? Like what? What do you mean? You got to get 70 cops? You can't do it with five guys and a taser. You got to get 70 cops to take out. Now, maybe it was a flash mob, right? Or maybe this is code for there being 10-foot tall aliens. I wasn't sure. There's some testimony out there from a couple guys saying they're at a Foot Locker and they're, shopping for some sneaks and they weren't trying to play that. And they heard pop, pop. And one guy's like, I'm out. So he books out and he describes the story in, full detail. But he said something interesting. He said, Bayview Mall Foot Locker. So guess what T Dog did? T Dog called the old Foot Locker there and he didn't get a response. The phone was off the hook. So then T Dog called the Sunglass Hut at the Bayview Mall. And this is the response that I got. Let me see if I can play it here for you. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Resonance Productions here in Washington State. Hey, I'm just calling to get a comment on the possible alien attack at the mall.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Have a nice day.
Oh, wah, wah. But you got
She
to appreciate.
hesitated. She hesitated, and she was trying to recall what her manager told her to say.
Right.
I've worked at the mall. I know how this goes down.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to show you real quick the image itself here. I don't know if you can see that. It's an alien standing in a mall with his his new shoes on. I had AI make that up for the contact. But what does that have to do with Bigfoot? Well, you can draw your own conclusion. The fact is, I think once in a while that they sweep things under the rug. This may be one of the moments where they came up with a faux story of a real event. Here's the deal, though, and I do have to divert. And I can't show any more images here because I'm on my main phone. But here's how they describe these beings, right? And this is what Brett clued into and what I clued into is that it described 10-foot tall silver beings, grayish silver beings. I don't believe they described the head very much, but they were fading in and out. Now, this, and I know Brett will chime in because he's going straight to Vegas when the young Hispanic kid described with his family seeing the aliens post haste of the crash sound in the sky with a giant light. And he described seeing something very similar shifting in and out of view, a la Barb Shoop Cloaker stuff. Also, Sonia Zohar does bring up in her interview the Predator footage and make some interesting conclusions about the cinema world and predictive programming and cloaking. But I do want people to know is that witness Daryl Adams from Cottage Grove, before he moved, he was scared out of the woods when he was down in the wilderness area above his house. And he told me circa 2021 time frame or 20 that he was scared out of the woods by a tall silver man that stuck his arm out at him. And he got a photograph of it. It's not much of a photograph, but there is, I showed it to you today. There is a profile image of something that sticks out. And you've been down there, you know how open that area is. He went on to say that it had a very tall, kind of diamond shaped hat, almost like the Pope had. But he described a silver tall space alien. And so this is like the third person that's described something very similar, one in a Bigfoot area, and then, of course, the Miami Mall near the Foot Locker.
Well,
I know. And I don't know what kind of sneakers these guys are shopping for, but maybe Air Force Ones or something. So high dollar value coming in from Alpha Centauri. The last thing I wanted to mention here, real quick, and we talked a little bit about this last time. In closing, is at the end of September 2024. I've made hints at this before. Just go up to your calendar and grab a pencil and just type in the last two dates of the 27th and the 28th of September. Just write something coming, flash of beauty oriented, perhaps. We're not ready to announce it yet. Things are still forming, but it could involve an adventure out here in the Olympic Peninsula, something different, something unique in the line of the way Flash of Beauty has been presented to you. That's the idea. Give you something beautiful to enjoy and hopefully never forget, with people you'll never forget. And so more to come on that later.
And tell really quick before we sign off, upcoming events, January, Kelso,
Longview, yes.
Longview,
26th
yes.
and I believe the 26th in the evening and the 27th will definitely be there, and we'll have a table together. If you've always wanted to, get some swag, meet the team, a flash of beauty, now's your chance. We're going into an APER conference for sure. I mean, let's just talk straight. And we're definitely the whack shack in the middle of all the ape stuff. And that's fine with me. I think there's room for all sorts of opinion. We were basically invited to come to this event and have a shot at this. But also, I'll be speaking sometime in August at this what they're calling Galactic Con, I believe, brought on
Ooh.
by the same people that are putting on Squatch Fest. So I'm a part of their world into the paranormal in the future. So that's kind of how this all happened. If you want a wood watcher and you're interested in my chainsaw carving and stuff I do, we'll have those there as well.
Okay, and I see Brett's typing in the text about April 6th. Selkirk Sasquatch Events is hosting us to do a screening of A Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot up in Meadowing Falls, Washington, which is in like the extreme northeast corner of Washington next to like literally Idaho and Canada border.
Oh,
We
are you going
also
to? Oh, yeah, you're going to the Ghost Conference. Are
that's
you doing the Ghost Conference on March 22nd?
It's not official yet, but Mark, if you're gonna be in Oregon, if you can make it out to Seaside, we haven't gotten the official check off, but I think we'll be screening the movie in Seaside, Oregon, which is my hometown. So I expect to see friends and family there. No pressure. And then
That's a huge event. It's one of the biggest ghost conferences out there. It's
oh,
one of the oldest too. So it's home of H.P. Lovecraft, incredibly haunted, crazy town. Jill knows all about it. So definitely go.
and the big one, July 19th through the 21st, Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And Tobe, you are familiar with Oak Ridge. It's not too far from Cottage Grove. Very squatchy area, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of where I broke my my knuckles looking for Bigfoot in the beginning. So yeah, definitely worth your time.
That's going to be really fun because we're going to be for 2 nights. We're gonna screen the first film, and then we're gonna screen the second film outdoors. It's just going to be a lot of fun. Who knows?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Maybe.
You're in an outdoor amphitheater. I know exactly where you're speaking, in front of the Willamette River, behind the amphitheater, set apart in the woods, Highway 58 behind you, but not so close it's going to bother you. And then cool old Oak Ridge and Skookum Falls down the way and Baboon Creek the other way. Incredibly squatchy.
Okay, well, that's going to be a fun one. So put that on your calendars. It's in July, so we'll have good weather for camping. Let me see here. I'm just looking through my notes. We talked about aliens. Oh, one more thing. I was alerted today that there's a TMZ just dropped a trailer for an alien documentary. Are we aware of this? Are we aware?
I saw this trailer. It inspired me to write McMinnville's UFO Festival and make sure that Sasquatch had a conversation with all things UFO related. I'm glad TMZ's investing time getting some good scoops on UFO stuff.
It's about time they use their power for good instead of
Mm.
celebrity ambushes. Um, yeah. Okay. So I guess thinking out loud, I need to start. I don't like the word pestering, but I need to be assertive with the McMinnville UFO Fest people to see if
Mm.
there's room for paranormal Bigfoot in the conversation this year.
Well, we'll definitely have a booth there again. It's whether or not we're going to be in the amphitheater there. And there's really usually some really cool guests that they get to speak over in the gymnasium. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they've got Bob Lazar twice, George Knapp 3 or 4 times. They're trying to get Tom DeLonge. They're trying to get, you know, some old guests from Art Bell to be on there. I think it's time that they invest in the conversation of Sasquatch being the ultimate alien. So I'll keep pulling on their coat on them at one.
I will join you. Alrighty, well that's all I got. We have let's see here. We have a new interview dropping tomorrow. Brett? Can you type in the chat who people are gonna
Oh, is he
see
going to give us a
tomorrow?
teaser?
Yeah, Brett. Who is it? Who is it?
We'll see.
Well, I'll
Maybe a
tell you what.
surprise.
It'll be there tomorrow.
Okay.
Alrighty, folks. So if you haven't watched Paranormal Bigfoot, please check it out on Amazon. If you like it, tell your friends. If you don't like it, tell your friends and get a second opinion from them. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the ultimate multi-level marketing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you're near Foot Locker in Miami, Florida, I'd just like you to size up the real deal. Was there an alien attack or was it kids fighting with sticks? I want to know. Get back to me. I have genuine interest. I want to talk to you.
Alrighty. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great weekend.
Over and out.
Okay, how do I log off? How do I do this? Okay. Bye, y'all.